Welcome to the Mentally Whole podcast. I am your host, Lauren Green. This podcast is a safe place for us to have weekly discussions about mental health, Christ, personal development, and the tools to live our best lives. Please stay tuned for a new episode. Hey y'all, this is the Mentally Whole podcast, and I am your host, Lauren Green, and this is a new episode, y'all. I'm so excited to be recording today because today I am recording, I'm going to try to anyway, record 2 episodes tonight because it's Monday night. So I'm going to try to record 2 episodes, one for this week and one for next week, and I'm super excited. So don't forget to share, subscribe, rate the podcast, tell your friends if they need mental health nuggets or notes or tips or whatever. Please share this with them. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast mailing list. I do want to start emailing you guys just different things that can go along with the episodes. And don't forget, new episodes will be released on Wednesdays now instead of Mondays. So let's get into our trending topics this week. I usually make an outline of what to talk about in the podcast, and I totally forgot to do trending topics, but I got them in my brain, y'all. So there has been a lot happening this past week, just in general, like in the world. So first things first is John Lewis and Reverend C.T. Vivian both passed away in the last week, right? And if you don't know who John Lewis and Reverend C.T. Vivian are, they were civil rights activists. They worked alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in some capacity in their life. It's really sad to hear that they both passed away because they both did great work for the African American community, right? John Lewis was still working hard for our community, even up until he died, right? So rest in peace to Reverend Vivian and rest in peace to John Lewis, right? What else happened this week? Nick Cannon's show Wildin' Out is now canceled for making, I believe, anti-Semitic, I'm probably saying that wrong, statements. I really have not read up on that story, but I heard his show is officially canceled with Viacom. That sucks because Wildin' Out is a big staple in our community. I remember when it first came out and it was like everywhere. There's not really a show like that out right now. So hopefully he can get his coins elsewhere. I mean, I don't know too much about the story, but I hope he can make his money elsewhere, y'all. What else happened? Oh, another trending topic. This will probably be the last trending topic. So Tamar Braxton was taken to the hospital for a possible suicide attempt. The one thing that I love Tamar Braxton, I love the Braxtons. Braxton Family Values is my show. It comes on We. Tamar Braxton also is slated to have a show come out on We. It's similar to Tamar and Vince, but it's just about Tamar. It's like her own reality show. And they were saying that she wrote sent a tweet or sent a message to her family about saying this is the only way out, and she took a lot of pills, and I think she had some alcohol too. Don't quote me on this, I just saw it really briefly, but yeah, my thoughts and prayers are out to Tamar Braxton. I hope she's doing well. I hope she's getting the help that she needs, honestly. This pandemic is affecting us, differently. And, we don't know what she is going through, I just looked up an article about Tamar. They said that she is stable, right? It says that she is stable right now. So praise the Lord for that. Okay. So hopefully she does get the help she needs, and hopefully her family and her sisters rally around her during this time. So we're going to put a pin in that, and we are going to move into the discussion of the day. This is an episode that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. So we are talking about cognitive distortions today, right? So a little background about cognitive distortions. If you hear the word cognitive distortions, usually cognitive distortions are found in cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So Aaron Beck, he basically developed cognitive behavioral therapy, noticed that many of his patients struggle with depression or different mental illnesses and were operating on false assumptions and distorted thinking. So he kind of developed a lot of the cognitive distortions that we study in psychology, right? And Aaron Beck's whole idea was if you can change how you think, you can change your symptoms, right? Or at least reduce them, right? So that is basically the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy. And today I want to talk about cognitive distortions because cognitive distortions are more common than people realize, right? And sometimes distorted thinking can lead to mental health disorders. So what are cognitive distortions? So cognitive distortions are tendencies or patterns of thinking or believing. They are irrational thoughts and beliefs that we reinforce over time. Oftentimes, these beliefs are false or inaccurate. Also, they have the potential to cause psychological damage. So this week's episode will be more psych heavy this week and probably next week too. But I really want to do this episode because, like I said, cognitive distortions are more common than you think. So in my outline, I have like 6 cognitive distortions ready to go, right? I could probably do some more because it's more than just these 6. But these 6 I just wanted to focus on really quickly. So the first one is all or nothing thinking. This could also be called black or white thinking. So this thinking is when you only see things in terms of extremes, right? Either it's perfect or it's a failure. Either it's beautiful or it's ugly. Either it's black or it's white. There is no, people that struggle with this thinking, there is no gray area. It's just black or white, and that's it. Point blank. For example, one time I was talking to someone about, eliminating sugar and sweet stuff from their diet. And I was like, oh, well, you can have, a little piece of cake or something sweet every now and then. They were just like, no, limiting sugar means no sugar. And that for me was an example of black or white thinking, because it was very much so like, no, either it's sugar or no sugar at all, right? A very black and white, very extreme way of thinking. The next cognitive distortion we have is catastrophizing. This one is very simple. Either you dread or assume the worst, right? Like, for example, you get in the car, go drive somewhere, immediately you think, I'm going to get into an accident and die. That is catastrophizing. I always say this word wrong, but that is assuming the worst, right? Or someone gets sick and you're immediately like, okay, they're going to die tomorrow. No, we can't think like that. So the next cognitive distortion is overgeneralization. So this means making a judgment based off of one or two experiences. So example of this would be, I went to that Burger King over there, over East Side, and they did me dirty. so I don't like the east side. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, you only went to the east side one time and you don't like it. Like, that doesn't make sense. Does it? Doesn't make sense, y'all. Or another example that I found in the articles on cognitive distortions was that a student may receive a C on one test and conclude that she is stupid and a failure, right? So overgeneralizing can lead to overly negative thoughts about yourself and your environment based on only one or two experiences. So in that specific example, just because she got a C on one test, she thought she was dumb and stupid. The next one is the next cognitive distortion that we're going to talk about today is mental filtering. This one is very similar to overgeneralization. So with mental filtering, you stick to probably one negative piece of information and exclude all the positive ones, right? So you ignore all the positive information and focus solely on the negatives, right? So for example, you could be talking to somebody and, you guys could be talking about graduation or something, and the only thing you focus on is the fact that it was raining outside. The one negative thing that happened was that it was raining outside, and that's all you focus on is the fact that it rained. Or you could focus on how bad the hospitality was from the people seating people for the graduation, right? So you only focus on the negatives and not the positives. Another cognitive distortion is mind reading. This is a good one. So mind reading means we think we know what the other person is thinking, right? So for this cognitive distortion, you basically are jumping to the conclusion that you know what the other person is thinking. I mean, it is possible that you might have an idea of what they think, but oftentimes you're not really going to know truly what a person is thinking in their brain, right? So another example of this, you could see somebody out, in the street and they make a weird face, and you jump to the conclusion that, they are thinking something negative about you or negative about somebody around you. That's an example of mind reading. Our last example, I might do another one, y'all. Yeah, I might do another one. Yeah, so our next one is fortune telling. This is basically like a sister distortion. It's closely related to mind reading. So fortune telling refers to the tendency to make conclusions and predictions based on little to no evidence and holding them as truth. Right? So basically with this one, you are doing something similar with mind reading. You are jumping to conclusions. So an example of this could be I'm never going to be able to afford a house. I'm never going to get a house, based on the fact that, you haven't found your house that you want. You haven't found your dream house, right? So basically, because you haven't found it, you're just like, I'm never going to have it, right? So our final cognitive distortions is should statements. Basically, this means that you have the tendency to make should statements. So should statements are statements that you make to yourself about what you should do, what you ought to do, or what you must do, right? Oftentimes we hang on too tightly to our should statements, and that causes us to feel guilty because we're not living up to our own expectations, or we might feel like a failure because we missed the mark on the expectations we have for ourselves, right? I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we hold on to these should statements, which causes us to feel failure, or to feel angry, or to feel, or feeling resentment because we might have missed the mark of our expectations, right? So should statements could be like, I should be losing weight right now. I should be driving right now. I must do this, or I must do that to feel beautiful, right? Take a good look at some of the should statements that you might be saying to yourself, right? So today, the cognitive distortions that we did today were all or nothing thinking, over generalization, catastrophizing, mental filtering, mind reading, fortune telling, and should statements. Now, if you want to know more information about cognitive distortions, you can simply just do a Google search and stuff will come up, literally. I'll also leave the links to the articles that I use to research for this week, and also just take a good look at how you relate to these cognitive distortions, because like I said, cognitive distortions are very common, right? We all have them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and until next time, y'all, this is the Mentally Whole Podcast.